Hi, and thanks for joining me on this video. So today I'm going to be here and I'm going to be reviewing 3 books that I read kind of recently. You know, some of these I did read like maybe a few months ago, but they're still fresh in my head and I kind of took notes at the time about my review and what I wanted to say about them. But before I get into that, I did just want to say thank you all so much for over 600 subscribers. I have been meaning to say that in all my previous videos and then I keep forgetting to say it, but it means the world to me. I believe I'm around 660 now, so actually kind of nearing to 700. Thank you so much, guys. That is amazing. That is such a big number and I just can't wait to get to like 1,000 now. Like, I literally think that's going to be possible and it's really exciting. So yeah, I hope you're all enjoying my content and just trying to mix things up a bit. But yeah, let's get straight into it then. So the first book that I read, not necessarily in order, but the first one I'm going to talk about is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Interesting. So he also wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I read that one first. Did I study that one? I honestly can't remember if I studied it or not now. I think I briefly studied it at some point, and I really enjoyed that one. So when I saw Treasure Island, to be honest, boats, pirates, that sort of stuff isn't really my thing, but my partner said he quite liked this one. I think he read it as a boy, and I thought, do you know what, I'm trying to read some of the classics, so I picked it up. I didn't really like it, to be honest, so I gave this one a rating of 1 out of 5 stars, and I wouldn't recommend it. There's just quite a lot wrong with it, in my opinion. First of all, you've got quite the old-fashioned language. I believe Robert Louis Stevenson, is it Victorian, I think? Yeah, this was first published in 1883, so that is obviously kind of late Victorian era. But yeah, so the language is quite difficult. Oh, I should probably say what this is about. So basically, you've got this young lad, I believe his name is Jim. He ends up connecting with these fellow kind of pirate people, and they all decide that they're going to go to a treasure island in search of some treasure. And then while they're there, there's kind of like some villains and some dodgy pirates who are just trying to kill people, and it just kind of all turns into that. It sounds more exciting when you put it like that, but I actually found it really boring. So yeah, I found the language quite challenging. Not only the fact that it's Victorian, but there's a lot of like pirate kind of talk, like the way they communicate to each other. There's a lot of terms I wasn't familiar with. They were describing parts of boats and just different boats, and I wasn't sure what any of that was. I just found it a bit confusing, and sometimes I felt like I didn't really know what was going on. And I mean, I'm not stupid, but it just wasn't for me. Maybe it's because I'm not that interested in it, but I just found it difficult. But yeah, I found it quite boring. I felt like the title is not very fitting, you know, being called Treasure Island. I would say 90% of the book is literally just about kind of hiding from the pirates and just like them killing each other and stuff like that. And then I think it's literally only in the last 20 pages, maybe even the last 10 pages, where we actually really kind of start to mention treasure. So that was kind of disappointing to me. I thought it was going to be more of like a treasure hunt with some kind of, you know, hiding from other people and some murder and stuff like that, but it just seemed a lot of like fighting. But yeah, what have I put here as well then? So I said the start is quite promising. Right at the beginning we meet I believe Long John Silver, who's like a pirate who's missing a leg and stuff like that, and I think he's got a hook in his hand from what I remember, and we meet him, and there's kind of like someone staying with this young boy Jim, like a fellow pirate or like an older guy, and I think he dies. And from what I remember, that was quite tense because that's when we started to get this idea of like, you know, there's quite evil pirates and there's going to be treasure, so that was quite promising. There's one other scene that I particularly like. These are all spoiler free, by the way. They're like either right at the beginning or not huge, you know, events. There's one other bit where you've got Jim and he's hiding in an apple barrel, and he overhears like Long John Silver and some other pirates kind of plotting to kind of kill and take the treasure and take over, just like greed. So that bit was quite interesting as well, but apart from that, nothing else stood out. I just was trying to force my way through it in the end. So yeah, so that's all I've got to say about that. Wouldn't really recommend it. If you have a different opinion, that's awesome. I would love to hear it, or if you agree with me, also leave some comments. But yeah, that was Treasure Island. So yeah, glad to have read it. It's one of sort of the classics out of the way, but yeah, I much preferred his other work like Jekyll and Hyde, so I just wouldn't recommend that one. But anyway, on a second book, I read this one. We're kind of going forward in time. So this one is, I think, either 80s or 90s. This is called The Stalker by Carol Ellis. And let me just see when this one was written. So this one was first published 1996. Okay, so it feels quite old, to be honest. It looks old, but it feels like it's set in the 80s or something. So this book is about a young lady who realises that she's kind of being stalked by, she thinks it's like a fan or anything or something like that. And basically it's just her kind of trying to figure out who it is. So some of the characters were quite interesting, so I liked that. It was quite unpredictable on the whole, and obviously that's always nice. I don't like books where you can kind of guess what's going to happen, so that was nice. There was a lot of suspects as well, you know, a lot of people who it suggested was maybe the stalker but then wasn't, so I liked that. So overall I give this one a 2.5 out of 5. So again, not a super high rating, but it was easy to read and relatively enjoyable, but it just didn't feel very in-depth, and I wouldn't probably recommend it for that reason. I would say I think it could have really done with some more kind of tense and atmospheric scenes. You know, if this whole idea is about a stalker, I think, you know, we could have had some more creepy stuff. I think there was one point where maybe she realised someone was watching her, or like she was looking out the window. That was quite creepy, but I think we could have had more scenes like that, really kind of, you know, bringing out that tension would have been cool. And then I would say some of it was a little bit far-fetched and cliche. I find that, to be honest, with these point horror books, sometimes they are a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit stereotypical in characters and stuff like that. That might just be more of the time than anything else. And then the other criticism I had was that there was kind of this romance element, which I just didn't really like. I didn't fully see the point in it. So yeah, so far, wouldn't really recommend any of those, but I like to talk about them anyway. But then the last book is one I would recommend, and this one is called First Class Murder. So I believe this is the third one in the Murder Most Unladylike mystery series. I really like these books actually, and this one didn't disappoint me either. So this one is about a murder that happens on a train. So you've got two young girls. I can't remember exactly how old they are. I want to say they're maybe around 12, 13. They're like pre-teen. I think they're quite young. And they've gone on a train journey with the one girl, Hazel, with her dad, I believe, just as like a little holiday. But then they always seem to stumble across crimes, and actually someone is killed on this train, and then they just decide to investigate it. So really fun. I like that it's all in one room. You know, I love sort of stuff that takes place in one location and you really get to learn about it. I'm always fascinated by stuff on these like fancy trains, you know, which actually have like the rooms, because I think that would be awesome to stay in. I quite like trains in that way. It reminds me of obviously stuff like, what is it, Agatha Christie, what's that train one called, Murder on the Orient Express. I suppose it's like that. I think it mentions that possibly. And it also reminds me of, if anybody played the Professor Layton Nintendo DS games, there's one of those, I can't remember the name of it, but there's one of those where you kind of investigating through a train and it's really fun. So I do like stuff like that, and the location is really good. There are a lot of interesting characters in this, quite lots of different sort of people. It's nice that we get to meet Hazel's dad for the first time, because in the previous books we learnt a lot about the other girl's family and friends, so Daisy's family and parents. In terms of the actual crime itself, I like that there was a lot of motivation there. There were quite a lot of suspects again, and I like that it seemed kind of justified. Like there's a lot of reasons, like because of money, because of love. You know, I like when there's motivation rather than just, oh, I killed someone randomly, because, you know, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of books and films for some reason decide to do that sometimes. So yeah, so I like that there was plenty of motivation for the murder. There were some historical references as well. Again, I think these books are set in the past. Yeah, so it says here, oh, here we go. Yeah, so it says at the front that both of them are age 13, and this is set in 1935. So yeah, actually it's set sort of early mid to 1900s, and it's quite cool because they do mention some historical stuff like tensions between countries, and I think there's certain characters on the train that dislike each other because of that, and I thought that was quite interesting. So overall I gave this a 4 out of 5, and I definitely would recommend it. It's one you could read standalone, or I definitely recommend reading all of them as well. I am probably going to review all of them at some point because I have got all the books in the series, but I haven't read any more of them yet. So in terms of kind of the downsides, I only have a couple. The first one I would say is that I did actually manage to guess one bit. Obviously that, you know, is not necessarily the fault of the writing, but I do think there was one bit that could have been made a bit more subtle. I'm not really going to go into it because obviously I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I do think one part could have been a bit subtler because of a revelation that I kind of guessed. I don't think I actually guessed the murder or anything like that, but there was like one other leading bit that I figured out a bit too early, I think. And then one other thing, not really a criticism, but I would just say, again, I would love more kind of tense scenes, a bit similar to pretty much the other two books. I just love tension, and I think if you've got something with crime or murder or stuff like that, and especially with these young girls investigating and not wanting to be caught, I think they could have really built on that on certain points, like with hiding and stuff like that. That would have been even more exciting. But yeah, I think also I would love to maybe read this again, because I think it would really benefit from a reread just to kind of fully understand the motivation and the murderer and all of that sort of stuff. So I probably will try and read that one again before I, like, you know, pass it on. But yeah, so that's all the books I've read recently. So I will be doing more of these videos in the future. So do subscribe if you like reading and if you'd like to see more of these book reviews. And don't forget to like the video as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. If you've read any of these, leave some comments or maybe recommend me some books. Like I said, I've got more books that I have read recently. So as soon as I've read like 3, normally I will then try and do a book review. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.